Right. Well, we've actually started broadcasting. Nigel, we've
It says live.
it is live. How are you liking your luxuriant studio?
I've been in worse.
That's a man of few words. What we're doing right now is waiting for Ann Deslandes to wake up. She is in Mexico City, where it's now 5:34 a.m. And I've just tweeted her the link so that she can join us on this chat tonight via Twitter. And so we're just waiting um, for her to join us. I thought I'd start the ball rolling because there's no time limit on these Google Hangouts. I've got a question because I haven't done one for the purpose of a pre-record before. What do you think, Nigel? Should I share that link with the world in case anyone wants to join us, or is that inviting? No?
It's just inviting technological disaster.
Okay. For some reason, you're fuzzy and I'm sharp.
No idea.
Okay. There you go. You're a man of few words again. We Have you read the article that Anne wrote?
Nope. Do I have a link to it?
Yes, it's on the face. What?
Maybe I did read it, actually.
It was the one where you thought that you and her were kindred spirits.
Oh, that one. Yeah. 2 seconds. I just get up my Facebooks.
Yep. I've got it up in here. Right. I really do hope Anne has remembered, because I'm curious about heading south of the border. I'll use this time to prepare myself. Oh, by the way, I don't think anyone's joined us, but they might better watch this later. This is the wine that we're drinking tonight, which is the Barleycroft Small Berry Mataro. It's a 2011, and it's got a fairly moderate 19.1% alcohol per volume. Could end up in making this a magnificent interview, yep.
Okay, I've got that article up again.
Good. Have a read. I'll keep my eye on Twitter, and let's see how we go. I don't think she's up yet. Okay. The suspense is killing me. Have you got some questions ready to throw at Anne when she joins us?
2 seconds.
Right. I'm back here. Thank you, YouTube.
So much questions, but ideas.
You've got wow. Is that all from that article?
No, that's from about 10 seconds thought.
Wow. Then you're going to take us there, because this does flow on from that.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Just current. Yeah, just cultural terms.
Hubble.
You can just do things like linking any of those two threads together to get a discussion.
Okay.
Social media and perception. What is truth in the drivers? You just pick any two sort of opposite parts. Disenfranchisement and what is the truth? You can get conversations out of all of those. Technology is not evenly available in apathy. Just this is sort of what's done real.
Right. So we've got plenty to talk to Anne about. She won't actually know what she's woken up to. I was just saying that Anne's going to wake up to quite a surprise with your line of questioning that you're planning, Nigel.
Come on, 6 o'clock in the morning. What is truth? Let's leap into a discussion about Mexican trade, apathy, and what is truth.
Hey.
You know that South Australia is one of the last states to do anything about medical marijuana?
So you're undermining her theory.
That comes under what is truth in the media subsection of the discussion.
So we've asked her on as a guest, and you're going to chop her down into little pieces. Is that what you're saying to me?
It's okay. It's early in the morning. She won't see it coming. Okay, so that's that. No, okay. So Mexico. Well, to be relevant, some of the discussion about the whole last election thing that directly affects them. Like, what do the Mexicans think about the whole NAFTA thing? Are they reckon it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, these are my opening questions. Is to start.
Yeah.
On that tact.
And have the Mexicans decided what color they want to paint their side of the wall?
I bet you'll forget that question. I hope you don't, but I bet you will. Now, there are little blue ticks next to my messages to Anne, which either means the tweets have gone through or that she's seen them. I really hope it's the latter. It actually feels a bit weird. It's like we're standing outside her door while she is getting ready to come on our show. It's a bit weird, Nigel.
See, if we were a bit more prepared, we could have found out the her IP address and the MAC address of a camera and hacked into it by now.
Which would have made connection easier. I'm sure that's where you were heading.
We could have her camera turned on automatically for her, just waiting.
Yeah. Who knows? Now that there's a connection from Australia to a former Australian in Mexico, the NSA are probably already hooked in and waiting. Probably there are people in the NSA going, hurry up, get on with it, hurry up. No comment? Nigel, are you there?
I'm still here. Yep, just getting distracted by Facebook.
Okay. Now, she did say 9 p.m. Eastern time, but that would have meant she was
That
ready
would have been
earlier
eight.
than us.
That would have been
Yeah.
8:30 our time.
Okay.
Unless she's already woken up, given up, and gone back to bed.
No, the world needs this conversation. We're standing outside. All right. You know, despite the fact there's not a lot happening at the moment, this probably is still better than a lot of what passes for television on the broadcast networks, I might add.
Do you not know? I haven't watched broadcast garbage for 4+ years now.
Really?
Yeah, 2012, last time I bothered. I'll watch a TV series, but I won't actually watch TV with any adverts and all that rubbish on it.
We've got people wondering if our live stream's happening yet. Trying. Our guest is still sleeping, possibly. Or there is a breakdown in...
So what sort of connection we've got with our guest? Is that via Facebook or via Google Hangouts? Because no one's on the group chat, I don't think.
No, it's she will get the link to this and then join us.
Okay. So in theory, we could. So if people are watching this, they must have access to the Hangout, which means would they have? They should have access to the chat as well, or do you have to allow that?
Oh, that's a good question. We could try.
Because we've got the chat down the right-hand side, because presumably our guests can type in very clever questions for us to see appearing.
Yes. All right. Well, let's see what we've got done here. So,
how do we tell How do we tell which guests or names are watching or anything?
I've got a master control that I'm using here. That will give me that information. Okay. Yep. Oh, can you see that as well? Can you?
Yeah, but I can't actually bring up any controls. This video app gives turn on off settings. Moderator has the ability to eject from the call. Learn more. Don't want to learn. Okay, yeah. So I can see that there is a control room. Oh, Q&A. What does that button do?
There is actually one viewer, but
that's
I wonder
an error,
if that's
Google.
you.
Requested URL was not found. The Q&A button just breaks automatically.
Oh, does it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the blue button on the left. When I clicked on it, it tries opening up a bar on the right and it just dies.
I found the YouTube page link. Let's see what that looks like.
This is Google Hangouts.
No, it's actually YouTube Live.
No, it's actually Google Hangouts because the server is hangouts.google.com.
Yeah, but it is actually YouTube Live. They haven't finished the complete transition yet.
No, it's actually Google Hangouts because the server.
Okay, I've got the link that I can share with the world.
Yeah, but it is actually YouTube.
So I am going to share that right now on our Facebook page. It could be the interview with Mexico City without involving anyone from Mexico City. Can you still see me, by the way?
Yeah.
Because I'm off doing something else. It's nice to know the camera is still on me.
Yeah, it's presume my camera's still working.
Right, so we'll go like this. And I'll just say, whoops. We are live. Just waiting for our guests to arrive. Okay, so I'm going to share that. Except I shared it on my personal account. I'll now share it on the Facebook page. We are live and just awaiting Ann Deslandes from Mexico City to connect. Okay, so we published that as well. So I've put it out on 2 Facebook channels. And now I'll come back so I can see myself. Right. So I was there the whole time, was I?
I've got other windows open. Yeah, appear to be.
Okay. Very good. All right. This is going to be the weirdest crafting. Look, I tell you what. Why don't we make good use of this time and do the essay drink of the week while we wait for Anne to join us? You okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
All right. Okay. Now, let's have a look here. Still just waiting for Anne. I might put her up here. Just so I can see when she comes along. We must have had 1 viewer because now it's gone back to 0 viewers. All right, let's do this. So actually, we also need to do the intro as well. We might as well, except we don't know if Anne's going to be in it or not. Let's record the intro to cover both opportunities of Anne arriving and Anne not arriving.
Okay.
And worst comes to worst, I'm just going to have to go solo in Is It News?
Yeah, we could ask Siri to help.
You just used the words Siri and help in the same sentence.
Yes, natural comedian.
All right. Well, look, we've got to do something here. This has been running for 20 minutes of absolute televisual joy. Okay, let me just get... entertain people while I just quickly do this. Why don't you read out your mind map?
You can't read out a mind map.
Act it out. Do liturgical dance to it.
Creative dance to it or something. So this is Culture in 2016 with 5 themes, with the themes being technology, Trump, crime, media, and rising nationalism. There's 5 random themes. And then that branches off. Well, we'll head down the crime route. So we've got what are the current drivers, people's perception of crime. Then we throw a link into Mexico to make it relevant for tonight. But then the Mexican one is trade. Do people actually head north and why? And are there any lessons in corruption and social disparity out of Mexico that we can learn? Hopping over to the media branch, we have in 2016, what actually is truth doesn't matter. We have the impact between social media and media. And that ties in with the Trump thread where he used social media a lot. Hillary was using traditional media, and he spent, from what I can tell, very little on traditional media and relied on his propaganda to get free pickups from the traditional media? What's the influence between media and power these days? And then rising nationalism, drivers underneath that being social disparity, an increasing drive of individualism, and changes to family structure. Jumping around to technology, we've got the disenfranchisement of how technology is assisting that, potentially. We have an aspect that technology is not evenly available to everyone. And the other aspect of technology in 2016 is the changing work, the fact that we're now talking about the fact that what happens in the days when robots start doing quite a lot of the work that we do. And moving around to the next one.
Oh, we're still going on.
Yep, Trump, which leads to wall, fears, facts being irrelevant, and apathy.
Okay, and that was Nigel's mind map.
Looks better visually, not surprisingly.
We could have a new segment, Nigel's mind map, every week, a new mind map, and that would feel probably 40 minutes.
Well, you can. What you do is you pair off. So you can either pair off a major topic, like you could pair off technology and crime, and you could look at the intersection of how is technology aiding or assisting in crime. How is it being used against crime? And that leads into a whole lot of social discussion into what is privacy in this day, constant monitoring by the media, the ups and downs of it. It might be really handy having constant surveillance. We had a friend of mine had their truck stolen in San Francisco this morning, and with photos of that, people were suggesting, well, what you can do is keep a track on the parking fines database, which is updated in real time, and you can see if the registration plate appears on that anywhere, give you an indication where the truck is. You get access to toll information, license plates tracking information. Does that make crime easier or harder? It's pretty easy to get stories together out of this.
Sorry, are you still talking?
That's that. Are we getting closer to a connection? I want to do the intro. Or do you want to do the wine?
We'll do it in chronological order. We'll do the intro. I'm just sending her an email as well. Hi, Anne. Okay.
Probably no one's probably thrown the internet cable over the new wall yet, so Mexico's probably isolated.
Don't they all just plug in a cable to a neighbour's telephone TV box? Hey, by the way, while you're there, can you tilt your lid down a bit, because your image is like, that's better. Not too low. Joy White might be watching from Manham. She might just get a little bit too excited and pound her celery. Right, beautiful.
Can you read that? There we go. One mind map. There we go. I guess I don't know if that gets recorded anywhere. You can probably swap it over to being the main feed from my camera or something. The wonders of modern technology.
Mm-hmm.
You could swap that over for 5 seconds if you ever wanted to.
No, thank you. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. Just so you know, I'm probably about 40 seconds away from recording the intro.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. If you just joined us, we're just waiting for Anne in Mexico City to join us. And that hasn't happened yet, possibly because it's like 5:30 in the morning. And who knows what's happened. Infrastructure could be down. All sorts of things could be happening. So, Anne Deslandes, okay. I'm just sending her an email.
Well, yeah, if we're trying to do a video stream out of Australia, we're probably consuming most of Australia's actually internet bandwidth. If it's based on the NBN or anything.
Okay, and we checked our time zones with Anne. You know, they were spot on. So something's happened. I certainly
Are they
hope.
on? What time are they on? What time zone are they on?
No, we both were speaking.
Oh, okay,
And
at the same time. Yep.
Yeah, we checked all that. So I can tell you quite comfortably, it's now ticked over to, or just about to tick over to 6 a.m. Tuesday in Mexico City.
Still ungodly time.
It is. Isn't all time. Anyway, I think we'll give her another 5 to 10 minutes, just in case she thought it was a half hour out. And then, if that's the case, we'll let the good people of the world get themselves free of this broadcast, which they can do anyway, of course, and we'll just do the rest of our pieces intimately next to each other, Nigel, with microphones.
Okay.
You really are blurry.
Don't know why. Unless it's just because I'm between a narrow corridor with walls that are super, super echoey.
No, I mean visually blurry.
Oh, visually. Don't know.
Oh well. Some people pay a
wait a
fortune
sec.
for a soft.
A sec. There was some setting somewhere about high definition or something. No, this says it's on. Well, yeah, video. Your video is totally blurry as well.
Ah, it's beautifully sharp here for me.
Yeah, well, obviously, because it's only a local feed. It's not going anywhere.
I could look at this for ages. It's amazing how intoxicating it is. Anyway, let's keep focused, shall we?
Yep. Okay. Are you ready for the intro?
Hang on, I'm just going to stop and start the recorder so we've got a nice... We now have a brand new track. I can delete the last one. Okay, let's do the intro now and take it from there. So the main microphone at this point is this one. I'll just keep one eye on Anne. I'm actually a little bit concerned that maybe the NSA has discovered that she was coming on and they've done something to her connection. Because I did say we'd be talking about the wall. I hope she's all right.
I'm sure the NSA would want to promote it, really.
Yes, fair enough. Okay.
I'm pretty sure the American is all behind. NSA is all behind making America great. Everything they do is totally supportive of making America great. So I don't see what sort of issue they could possibly have.
Okay. Before you get yourself into trouble, let's do the recording.
There goes my visa.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's do this. Let's do an intro that accommodates either Anne joining us or not joining us.
Do you want me to clap you
in?
Are
you ready?
Yep.
Yeah, still give me the clap, please. Hello and welcome to the Adelaide Show, the weekly podcast that puts South Australia on centre stage. I'm going to start that again because I just noticed that the levels were still down on the recorder from when we were at the Music Awards. All right, I'll have another dose of clap, please, Nigel. Hello and welcome to the Adelaide Show, the weekly podcast that puts South Australian passion on centre stage. I'm Steve Davis, and joining me back in the Adelaide Show studios tonight, I have Nigel Dobson-Keefe.
Hello, everyone.
And maybe Ann Deslandes from Mexico City, but we don't know yet whether our paths are going to cross telephonically this evening. We're living here in anticipation. But anyway, either she will or she won't. I can tell you that in the can, so it's definitely going to happen, Dan Drummond, our musical curator, and I spent last Friday night at the South Australian Music Awards at the Norwood Concert Hall. We had an absolute blast. I can tell you, we talked to heaps of musicians. I got to actually come face to face with Tom Lyon, not Tom Thumb, another famous South Australian musician whose names I always confuse, and I apologise to him to his face for that. He has a rather interesting reaction to that. We meet Dusty Lee, Tara Carragher, lots of different names that we've heard on this show. I do want to single out one musician of note, Martin Hazy, the Lord Mayor of Adelaide. He joins our podcast as well at the awards, and we even have a little bit of him playing his instrument, which we'll thread through the program later tonight. As far as music is concerned, the track that Dan Drummond has selected for us tonight is a track called Speed Boy by Skies, and I thought it was appropriate given that I shared this podcast with you, Nigel Dobson-Keefe.
Oh, I don't get the link there.
Speed Boy. Didn't you just spend a month and a half in the desert with naked people?
Yeah, it was a pretty relaxed, slow affair there. Wasn't really rushing around a lot.
I bet. I tell you what, though, if you ever are overly hyper and you do need to relax, the SA Drink of the Week this week is a ripper for that. We've got a Ballycroft Vineyard and Cellars Smallberry Mataro fortified vintage, and it's only a mere 19.1% alcohol. It's certainly warming us up in this crazy Adelaide spring. And it is crazy. I know spring is often topsy-turvy, but I think we've gone over the limit now. Would you agree, Nigel? It's now gone beyond the normal topsy-turviness?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like, you had last Friday was a classic point of a really nice warm day, and crazy thunderstorms, the worst hailstorm in 50 years, and then cold and rainy on the weekend. Then it was cold this morning, and then this afternoon it was warm again. Like, just make its mind up.
All right, well, let's make our mind up right now, tuck in for all that and a whole lot more in this week's episode of The Adelaide Show. All right, intro done?
Yep.
Still no word from Anne. I'll just see if she has connected in any other way. No. Okay. Let's do the SA Drink of the Week. What's the time now? It is now 6:07 a.m. How long do we give her, Nigel?
Well, we just keep on doing our show and see how we go.
She's here. She's here. She's here.
Hi.
Anne.
Oh.
Welcome.
That timing was so perfect; it nearly looked professional.
Wow, that's excellent. Now I just put Anne on the main speaker. Oh. Okay, Anne, I hope you can hear us. We can hear you. Oh, we've lost vision of you. We'll just wait for the internets to catch up again. We've just been talking and recording other segments of the program.
Great.
All right, so you're actually here. We just can't see you, that's all.
Okay.
Is your camera actually on, or would you rather... Well, we're hoping it would be on, but we know that it's 6:08 a.m.
It's 5:08.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
I really got the times completely wrong then.
And the good thing is we've got Steve recorded saying he saw black and blue. The timing was exactly correct. He tested it out. Go, Steve.
Thank you. I think this is where I quote from the bard who said, "All's well that ends well."
Well, let's hope so.
Okay, well, look, Anne, you're coming through loud and clear. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can, yes.
And were you able to hear Nigel?
Yes, absolutely.
This is not.
Beautiful. All right. Now, we still only have your picture. We don't have video, but I'm also cautious about not draining your internet connection. I don't know what IT is like in Mexico City.
Look, I have pretty good internet right now, but I think it probably is better without the video, without the vision. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, good.
Well, it is a little sad, but we'll get over it.
Good.
All right. I'll just get my notes ready now. This is... I am quite elated. All right. Beautiful. I'm ready to rock and roll. Nigel, you're ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
And Anne, I trust you're ready. I'm probably thinking, get on with it. Here we go. Oh, yes, there was no... okay, that point taken. All right, let's do this. Nigel, can you clap us in, please?
Can do.
Ann Deslandes is a born and bred South Australian, now living in Mexico City. However, despite living in the potential shadow of Donald Trump's wall, she is actively exporting her thoughts around the world. One such export was an opinion piece that appeared recently on the SBS website entitled, "South Australia's always led the way on progress. Why not follow their lead on renewable energy?" With that article, she piqued our interest, and now we're peeking into her living room very early on a Tuesday morning to mine her thoughts about progress and renewable energy. Anne, welcome to the Adelaide Show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning.
And I must ask you, first of all, I was trying to have restraint and save this for later, but we just had the US election. Donald Trump is now in. Can you tell us, from what you've heard about other people talking around Mexico City, what is the thought? They've been maligned by him. There's a big blinking wall about to go up. What's the gut feel? What's the mood of Mexico?
Look, I think that from what I can tell, I teach English here, and so most of my information is coming from my students. I think the mood is a combination of a few different feelings. One is kind of bemused and amused. I think that for Mexico, the United States government has never been a particularly friendly option. And so to have someone like Trump, it's particularly unfriendly. But I don't think that it's hugely, it's not as much of a shock perhaps as it might be to some of the rest of us. People are worried about their families. Many Mexicans have family in the US, and of course the threats that Trump is making about deporting Mexicans who are undocumented is very worrying. And I think that Mexicans are worried about becoming further isolated economically. As it is, the exchange rate between the peso and the dollar is not good, and it has isolated and continues to isolate Mexicans economically. To travel, for example, is extremely expensive. Of course, there's a reason that people want to go to the US, and it's because it's economically more favourable because the dollar is worth so much more than the peso. So yeah, there's that sort of range going on from what I can tell.
And look, if this was Australia in that situation that the Mexico's in, by now there'd be lots of jokes about the wall and the use of humour to try and ratchet it down a notch and take some of the pressure off. Does that happen within Mexican culture? Is it a joke-making culture?
Mexicans are hilarious and very, very, very funny. Lots of jokes. Saturday morning, I had a class that's mostly composed of young men who are sort of 18, 19. And I asked them, of course, because I was curious, how they're feeling about the election. One guy said, well, they can build that wall, but we're really smart, and we could just dig a tunnel like Chapo, the guy who did indeed escape from prison by digging a tunnel. So yes, absolutely. There is so much. There is much laughter to be had in this instance. The other joke, of course, is well, of course, the best jokes are about the wall, but one of the kind of darkest kind of jokes I think that people tell is that the wall already exists for Mexicans. There's it's already incredibly dangerous to make that journey across the border, and it's already economically very, very difficult to be on this side of the wall, so to speak. So yeah, sure, build the wall. I think come at me, bro, is kind of the general vibe.
Wow, that fascinates me because it just shows that the whole wall notion was pantomime or theatre for the American audience.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's totally. I mean, I'm sure that the wall, if it's built, will create an additional barrier, but yeah, I think exactly. I think Trump's great gift to the world, in a horrible sense, is absolutely theatre. His name is Trump, for goodness sake.
Now, Anne, we're getting closer to discussing your article, which was a reflection based on your time in South Australia, but we need to find out, probably even before the interview goes any further, what are your South Australian bona fides? Are you really a true South Australian?
Look, yes, I grew up, I think, a sixth generation South Australian, which isn't actually something to be super proud of as a white person. I think that, sixth generation, how long ago was that? 100 years? 150 years?
Probably a bit over 100, I would have thought, if we aim for about
that. My family on both sides are from, my name, which we now say as Deslandes, is a French name that once upon a time would have been pronounced Deslandes, and is pronounced Deslandes when I'm in French-speaking countries. And then people realise that I can't speak French, and it's very disappointing for them. Sorry, France. So that's where the name comes from. My father's family migrated from Jersey, an island in the Channel Islands, a country in the Channel Islands, as did a lot of migrants came from there, I believe, 100 or so years ago. The Le Cornus, for example, I believe came on the same ship, the same boat. And the Le Mesurier, I can't remember. There's a number of families in South Australia who have. It's kind of.
I bet the Le Cornu family, they were also charged what your family was charged, but they got to pay it 18 months interest free.
Yeah, well, I can only imagine the kinds of conversations that were,
And so, where did you grow up around South Oz?
I grew up in the south of Adelaide in Noarlunga. So Colonnade Shopping Centre is my kind of centre of gravity. And my family still live down that way. My mum and dad still live down that way. And my siblings, I'm one of 4 kids. They also live mostly down that way.
Okay. And so, my last South Australian cringeworthy question relates to something you mentioned on social media, that you tried to translate heaps good into
Yeah.
into Spanish. And what is
Yeah,
what
I
is the
did.
language? Spanish.
Yeah, and it's funny, like after I had this ridiculous conversation, I realized afterwards that all I needed to really say was that, it means that something is very good. But I just got really confused and tried to translate the word heaps, which literally, like, it's not on its own a positive thing. And I was trying to sort of say, heaps, like, as in like small piles of something, and it just, and the person I was speaking to was like, right, so piles, the kind of thing that you pile up something like rubbish, but it's good. And I was like, yeah, God, you just really don't know how to kind of translate my unique dialect. And then I realized, like, it just means it's very good. And I could have just said, muy bueno, which most people would understand. Yes, it was very funny.
I think it's a beautiful thing, because I'm sure that little saying has never been mined for its nuance to the level that you have just done.
I think it's finally in that exchange, and indeed in this rich linguistic conversation that you and I are having about it. Yes, indeed, it's finally getting the nuance that it deserves. South Australians have a very unique location in the English language.
Yes, at the top, I believe.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I want to turn to this article because it was a rip snorter, to use another colloquialism. Don't translate that.
I was going to say, I'm definitely not going to try that. Yeah.
I wanted to take one of the very early passages in this article, which was written in the wake of the storm that took down a lot of our transmission towers, forced the wind turbines to be shut down, etc. And it's erupted into this great debate. This will set the scene for those laggard listeners who haven't yet read your article. Here we go. You're talking about the fact that South Australia is caught in a literal and figurative storm, with Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and his allied climate change deniers, such as Senator Barnaby Joyce, saying that as the state with the highest use of renewable energy sources, we only have ourselves to blame here in South Australia for our recent blackout. And then you make the pertinent observation, the blame game was joined by Senator Nick Xenophon, who fears that the hours without power had made his home state the laughing stock of the nation. My question is, were all of these men practicing political opportunism, or was it just such a beautiful thing for them to get their hobby horses out of the stables and at full gallop?
Yeah, look, I would say the latter. I think that, there's nothing like a bit of a disaster, is there, to kind of bring out the definitive statements and the kind of, well, I told you so, or yes, we have to do this, or well, this is the only way forward. I think that's how most people react in the first instance to something that is difficult or that causes a lot of mass concern. So yeah, I would say it's that. I would say that it's it's a chance, and maybe a little bit of both. So yeah, I guess for politicians, any kind of crisis is an opportunity to be to put on this show of kind of strength and to try and ram through what they think, is best for people. And as we know, that's not always based in evidence, and it's not always based in the best interests of the people. So that'd be my hot take on that one.
And look, what it brought to the fore for me is I've seen Nick Xenophon operate for a long time, and I've always admired his political prowess and his pragmatism often. But it's only the last year or so I've noticed him take opposite sides to me. Like, I love renewable energy, but I also like the science behind the nuclear waste repository as well. I think there's a lot that's to be said for both of them. He's against both. There are other friends of mine who are for one and against the other. We are getting to picking up on that nuance theme again. Is it that what this storm really should have brought to the fore was a chance for nuanced discussion rather than all or nothing?
Yes, well, that's exactly what I think too. And I think that the nuclear waste debate in South Australia is a good example of that. I'm not across it in much detail or nuance myself from over here, but I thought it was really quite typical of South Australia, actually, that we had, I can still say that, can't I? I'm still one of you.
Yes.
Yeah, the Royal Commission and what I understand to be an ongoing debate. At the beginning of the 21st century, I was actually involved in a conference called the People's Conference, which sought to bring together a wide variety of people from across the state, most importantly, Aboriginal people who were going to be affected by what at that stage was a proposal for a nuclear waste dump, and young people who are going to have to inherit whatever decisions that we take in the present. And it was an incredibly rich experience for me. I was, 20 or something, to see how we can actually have nuanced discussions. We can listen to all sides of the argument. We can come up with our own takes on things and process them and take our time and really listen to the possibilities. I think that's something that South Australia seems to have been particularly good at certain points in history, and I think this is no different. I'm not sure how it's going. What's happened since if I can turn the microphone back on you, how is the sort of aftermath of the storm going? All I really hear, of course, is from my loved ones who are just really happy that the power's back on, mostly.
And look, I'm in that camp as well.
Better discussion?
I don't think there is. I'll come to you, Nigel, because this is where your mind map comes to the fore about culture. But in essence, on the two fronts, the people's jury voted 2/3 against proceeding on the nuclear dump issue. Although it's still not over, they're talking about a referendum. And I thought Jay Weatherall, despite the fact that it's perfect time for people to jump on him, is handling this in a way that, if the media wasn't such a Punch and Judy affair, it could actually still be a useful conversation. That's that one. Electricity, I just heard it come out that, well, first of all, we learned it was the safety switches for the wind turbines were set probably a little too sensitively, and they could be put back a bit. But also, when the Liberals privatised our power and chose not to expend what was going to be a paltry sum, I've got a funny feeling it was like $90-something thousand to put in a second power connector to New South Wales, which is now, a lot of money. That would have helped us avoid what happened. So have we come to a full circle on that? I don't think so. But Nigel, I want to bring you in here because I'm getting the sense that I'm becoming more acutely aware of that word, nuance, that is being demanded of us in public discourse, even though our institutions like the media don't allow it to happen. Is it that issues are becoming more complex, or is it that I'm just perhaps listening more deeply? Go to you first, Nigel, and then I'll turn to you, Anne, on this one.
Well, the issues have always been really complex, and the media's normally been its own worst enemy trying to represent that because they tend to go for the lowest common denominator. And unfortunately, things that are really complex don't always have a nice, easy 3-second soundbite you can translate it to. So, things like nuclear power, I actually got sick of that debate back in the 1980s, early 1980s, when it was clear that it was going to be a dead duck forever, literally. Because it's so complicated and there's so many things involved, from the economics, the policy, the social issues, the technical issues, the meta social issues of where do you get enough people to even run nuclear power or anything like that, which then leads into all other secondary issues of education and infrastructure, security, the whole lot. It's just simply not a topic you could ever have a reasonable discussion about with an average person without totally confusing them, and they'd just give up. And that's exactly what's happened. Basically, every attempt at that discussion in the past 30 plus years now. And that's the problem with really advanced technology, which especially the latest nuclear power, which is even more complicated than what we had in the 1980s, and it's one of those things where you can't just ignore it and someone else does it, like how a mobile phone works, which is probably equally complicated, but no one really cares about that.
I think what I take out of that is the only way we get through is not with a Jay Weatherill, but with a Donald Trump. That's what you're saying.
Well, you've got two approaches. You can either go the Donald Trump, I just say what it is, and I'm a little dictator sort of approach, which has been his lead up to the election. How the GOP handles him post-election will be another thing, whether he ends up being just yet another puppet on strings. The only other option is the really hard option, and that's where you actually develop a really well-educated populace. And basically no one's got their heart in doing that. We still have a pretty poor education system. We teach what to think, not how to think. There's very little emphasis on critical thinking or creativity. Our government is now talking about, education should really be based around, what's good for the economy and, good for jobs. Higher education's taking cuts, research is being slashed. So unless you're willing to actually have a quite highly educated population that can actually understand these conversations, it's really a dead duck as far as I'm concerned.
What does it look like to you, Anne?
Can you repeat the question? I was just I was listening to you, Nigel, and thinking that I agree with a whole bunch of things, but then I forgot what I was agreeing.
In short, it was, are the issues more complex than before, or some of us becoming more aware of the nuance and being frustrated by the fact that the public institutions for conversation don't seem to allow them, especially social media, which you think would be able to have ongoing micro conversations with plenty of nuance, tend to be polarized within moments, like popping an effervescent tablet into a glass of water. It just bubbles into polarity.
Yeah, look, I think that globalization and our increasing connection to each other and increasing exposure to what it means to all be living together on the same planet is definitely, it definitely feels complex to me. And I think that it does create, well, it certainly creates the need to have a more nuanced conversation about things. And, I think social media is, it's a phenomenon that we have to, that just defines how we talk about so many things now. And so I think that's just how it rolls. But it would be so good. I often think, I've thought this about the election in the US particularly, if we could just have a bit of space and time to breathe and talk through how we're feeling, and try and come up with how we're going to react, whatever that might be, in the knowledge that we are all in this together.
And I think that's probably enough we've had there. You know, our time is up now, so we must move on to our next topic of exciting radio to play here.
Very droll. You have hit the nail on the head, Ann Deslandes. I really think we just rush. It's like we're on a perpetual escalator or walkalator or whatever they have. You have to fight hard to get time to stop and reflect. And I think that's a challenge to all of us.
Well, that sort of leads into one question I had there, which was, are we getting into sort of a dichotomy where we have these grassroots movements using social media versus the old school power structures and traditional media?
Well, I kind of hope so in some ways, because I think that the traditional media so clearly is not serving us. I mean, they didn't even know that Trump was going to win. Like, you know, we've looked to the traditional media for a framework for understanding the world for a long time, and I think that institution has definitely done that. But in the present, it's clearly not. And when you look at who it's still made up of and who it's owned by, it's not representative of the world. It's still old white men who are in charge of those channels, and who are treating their own employees very badly. It's incredibly difficult to get a job in that industry. I'm a freelancer, and I can tell you from that end that getting published and getting paid can sometimes be, you know, half the work, because of how hindered the institutions are by their own, you know, processes. So I welcome the new media age. I think that there's much more scope for new voices to come through, for creating some of these spaces that I mentioned before, where we can take a breath and reflect and actually listen to the diversity of people who are affected by really big political decisions. I'm excited about what that might look like in, you know, going forward, even if we do have these problems of polarization and you know, the kinds of online abuse that we see and that kind of stuff. I think that it's still a hopeful world.
Coming back to your article, you juxtaposed this debate and the poor old South Australia, they brought it on themselves because they were so, in inverted commas, progressive with their renewable energy, and so ha ha ha. But if you look back to what you did juxtapose that against, which was the suffragettes, well, the votes for females in the late 1800s, we've been up there with homosexuality reform. We had a beautiful interview with Dr. Dino Hodge, who wrote the biography of Donald Dunstan a couple of years ago, and that was absolutely fascinating. And a lot of other things with Aboriginal ownership of the land and rights thereof to parts of South Australia. Now, I'm struggling to see such landmark decisions and movements gain hold in this era where our attention spans last 5 minutes. We had that movement, what was that Wall Street movement that they had in America, which fizzled quickly. You know, you've got WikiLeaks used to be earth-shattering, now it just gets brushed away quickly. I fear nothing of substance can stick, and that the hope you might have of South Australia reclaiming its heritage of progress is a bit lost.
Yeah, it is. It is very discouraging, I think. I mean, I was involved in the Occupy the Occupy demonstrations in Sydney. Don't tell anyone that I have lived in Sydney. But I know. Does this invalidate the whole interview?
No, but it means I'm going to edit it in a certain way.
Okay, good. Yeah, no worries. So I happened to briefly, for 10 years, roll into Sydney, and I was a participant in Occupy Sydney, as were many of my best and dearest friends. And I think that on the surface, absolutely, it really does feel often that these new ideas and this new energy and pushes for change and fairer and better structures to run the world, it can feel as though they don't stick, and I totally understand that feeling. Certainly from the perspective of Occupy, I think that for me it was just incredibly discouraging to see the way that the authorities responded. It does feel very difficult, particularly in Australia, I think, to demonstrate in public, to try and build something like that, only to have it absolutely crushed by the police, But that's just on the surface in some ways. I think that anybody who has been exposed to ideas like that and has participated in movements like that, they carry that into their everyday life, and they tell their kids about it, and they tell their colleagues about it, and it really informs the conversations they have on social media, for example, and it demonstrates to them that change is, that there are other ideas for how we live our lives. So even though it feels like and looks often like things can't stick and change can't happen, and that we don't have the attention span to kind of keep something going. I think that below the surface, a lot of that stuff does stick.
That is perhaps an optimistic note.
Yes, I am optimistic. Well, actually, no, I'm not optimistic in the sense that I'm not particularly optimistic. I mean, Donald Trump has just become the leader of the world. It's hard to be optimistic about what that might mean. But I do think that it's like you were saying, Nigel, about education. If you're exposed to the possibility of things being different, and you participate in something where you fight for that and you see how that rolls, I think it does change you, and maybe we just don't know exactly yet what that might mean. And in terms of South Australia, like the reason I wrote that article was for similar reasons. Growing up in South Australia, in a family that was very proud to have this heritage of progressiveness, I think that's an idea that has stuck with me, and now I do things with my life that are based on those ideas. And so I think that it's just not always immediately obvious how that influences people, if that makes sense.
It just occurred to me that this slippery, I don't say slippery slope, but this slippery world we live in, where it's hard for ideas to stick and stay. I take your point that it can inform conversations of the most involved that eke their way slowly, like underground water in the water tables. But I wonder, I was despairing in thinking of that. But on the other hand, I read this essay about Donald Trump and likening him to Hitler and the rise of a fascist type leader who can take control. And you've got Putin in Russia, you've got the door open for similar types in France and England, etc. I wonder if this crazy pace at which we live the fractured nature of social media means that it might also equally make it hard for the demagogues to gain total control, because we move on like goldfish and can be distracted as well. I wonder if it's a two-edged sword.
Yeah, I think that's a really legitimate way of thinking about it. I think that distraction is it's not in the favour of leaders that want us to be constantly listening to them. Absolutely.
Look, I think I'll pause the main interview there, because it's been fascinating getting a chance to talk to you about this. But your interview does continue in a segment called Is It News?
Great.
Which I have forewarned you about.
We
And
have.
what's the time now where you are?
It is 5:44 a.m.
I think that's the perfect time to be subjected to Is It News. So hold on 2 seconds. We'll get set up and run you through the gauntlet. Ann Deslandes.
Okay.
Anne, I'll just get Nigel to introduce the segment now. It does have its own little intro. But before we go on, I obviously am going to link back to this article, to your Twitter profile. Is there anywhere else that you'd like people to find you?
I have a website that has all of my other writing on it.
Is there a link to that on your Twitter profile?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on, let me just check. Yes, hold on. Yes, that's the one.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Okay, so in essence, Nigel's going to read 3 stories, and one of them is a fake.
All right.
And you and I both get a chance to work on this together. And I have no idea what's about to come out of his mouth. So here we go.
Exciting.
I'll just do a clap sound effect for the editing process. Here we go.
Okay, and that brings us along to our Is It News segment, where we'll look at news stories of old yesteryear, and we find a couple of interesting stories and then add to it one interesting but completely fake or made up story. This week's theme, not surprising, is Mexico. And similarly not surprising, not a real lot of stories between Adelaide and Mexico pre-1954, which is as long as the Trove Library goes up for South Australian newspapers. So we'll jump into the first story. So this is from and Steve's going to have a laugh at this one. So this is from the Recorder, February 1922.
The Recorder, that's Port Augusta, isn't it? No, that's Transcontinental.
Yeah, it's one. I think it could be Piri, I think, actually.
Okay.
Yep. Earth Shook in Mexico is the title of the story from February 1922. Adelaide, Wednesday. The seismograph at Adelaide Observatory recorded an earthquake shock at a distance of approximately 6,600 miles, which would be about 7 o'clock on Tuesday in Mexico. Probably this is some connection with the big shock reported by cable to have been felt in Mexico and other parts of Central America.
Right. Ann Deslandes, are you thinking that's plausible for the Recorder to carry that story in what year?
1922.
22.
I'm going to say no, not because Mexico isn't subject to earthquakes, but right. I just feel like, I mean, I don't even know if we can do that now. Can I? I'm not even sure that we can detect earthquakes on the other side of the world in 2016. So I'm going to say no.
Oh, okay. So I wonder, Nigel did these today. That idea might have erupted from the New Zealand earthquakes that just happened, and he's twisted that into his foul and deceptive thinking. Look, look. The thing that gets me the most is the distance, 6,000 odd miles away.
Yeah.
I think that is stretching it in 1922. I actually a bit more bullish on the technology side. I reckon they could pick that up these days, but but then would they report that in the recorder? Because I can't imagine there was a great Mexican contingent living in South Australia in those times, unless you know any different, Anne. But I would have.
No, I'm with you. Exactly.
Yeah. So look, at the moment, I'm thinking that is not plausible at all, but I reserve the right to change my mind.
All right.
Okay, number 2, Nigel.
Okay, number 2 from the Chronicle, March 1947. Adelaide birds for Mexico. 16 parakeets left by Pan American Airways on Wednesday for Mexico City. They arrived at Sydney by TAA plane from Adelaide on Monday. The birds are consigned to a Mr. D. West in Mexico City. They come from Mr. H.S. Sewell of Adelaide. Instructions on the cage read, "Please take care of us, give us our birdseed and our water. A 20-pound bag of birdseed is part of the consignment. It will take the birds 4.5 days travelling to reach Mexico City. The cage is divided into 6 compartments and has fixed drinking bowls. There are striped awnings on the front of the cage."
Okay, this is obviously pre-9/11 because they just publicised the freight manuscript of someone's travel documents, which today would be totally confidential, I would have thought. I actually think I've got an impression that this is fairly plausible because there's quite a love for exotic birds in the South America, Central American region. Is there not?
Well, they certainly are plentiful. They exist, and it's more common. Well, from my perspective, it's more common that I would hear about them being people trying to smuggle them out to sell on other markets. But yeah, I think this is true, and I actually think I find this quite delightful if it is true, because my family on my dad's side are great lovers of birds, and my dad and my grandfather have both kept birds of various kinds, and I think that it sounds to me quite a plausible thing that a South Australian gentleman might send some birds over to the other side of the world to keep a colleague or a friend amused.
What I love about this story is the fact that TAA was the airline. You are, I'm guessing, from little hints you've given in the conversation, too young to have ever flown on TAA. Would I be right, Anne?
I never did fly on TAA, but I am aware that it was an airline for a long time, an Australian airline, yeah.
Because I remember in the very early 80s, no, mid-80s, buying a kangaroo pass to fly around Australia in one way, a bit like a round-the-world trip, but it was an Australian trip. And I had my lovely black leather man bag, which I clutched with to my wrist, and I thought I was just the most dapper, jet-setting type ever.
You
and I look back and I think,
how wonderful! Yes, indeed.
So anyway, and I remember that TAA was lovely. They lovely bags as well, travel bags. But the airlines all had good travel bags back then. But I digress. Yeah. Totally plausible. I think the birds migrate anyway, and this is just being helped mechanically. Number 3, please, Nigel. Are you with me on the? You said that was plausible, didn't you, Anne?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. All right. Number 3.
Okay, we leap a year forward to the Advertiser, September 1948. Bullfight sparks complaints. The Royal Adelaide Show and Horticultural Society moves into its 2nd century with a little bit of controversy. Its 99th annual show on September the 8th, 9th and 10th is promising to feature a Mexican bullfight. The Royal Adelaide Show and Horticultural Society has a proud record of achievement since it held its first show in March 1842. Last year, the Society celebrated its centenary year, although it has yet to reach the same number of annual shows. During the Second World War, the Society went into recess when the showgrounds were taken over by military authorities. The first show after the war had a smaller than expected turnout, although organisers said that 1947 was one of the wettest years on record, and the constant rain during the show turned away crowds. Farmers have complained that having such a bullfight in the show detracts from the seriousness of their work. Furthermore, such practices are un-Australian, and they say that, in their opinion, such sport will not draw the crowds some of the committee are hoping for.
I would just like, before we turn to you, Anne, to insert a comment. Am I right in thinking that in your mind you were thinking, Anne, my goodness, I'm going to be interviewed about Mexico and nobody's going to talk about bullfighting?
Look, I'm a bit bemused by this because bullfighting isn't really a big thing in Mexico. It's a Spanish thing. Mexicans will obviously know about the tradition from Spain, but I can't comment because I don't know. I am wondering though if because it's more of a Spanish thing than a Mexican thing, maybe that means it's not real.
You're thinking Nigel maybe changed it from Spain to Mexico because he was getting desperate?
No. I'm just saying that maybe it's part of the game to figure out what is news and what is not. And I'm very cleverly, it's very early.
Very cleverly what?
I am very clever. Detecting his game.
All right. So what does that mean? Which one are you thinking is the fake?
Oh, there's only one. Oh, damn. I'm not very good at this game.
You just contradicted it. And the funny thing is, Nigel and I are the ones drinking a drop of alcohol with 19.1% alcohol from the Barossa, and you're the one who's sounding like you've had it.
Yeah, I often do sound like this first thing in the morning. It's embarrassing. Which one? All right, now I have to decide. I still think that it's the first one. I think that the seismograph one is not.
Yeah, look, and my BS detector certainly is pointing to the first one as well. I think that it makes sense. Yeah, we are. We're going to go down together or we'll rise up triumphantly. All is about to be revealed. Nigel, take it away. And if you make a fool out of us, I will erect my own wall between you and me after this episode.
Okay, so we'll go to story number 2 first to keep the suspense going. So Adelaide Birds for Mexico in 1947 was indeed a true story. The birds were travelling over to Mexico City, and there was some very nice striped awnings on the front of the cage. So that story is indeed true.
It's a lovely flourish of detail in the news. Imagine, where would that be? Would have been the front page of the paper or tucked away in what we now call the gossip columns? To go through and list.
Back then, most news stories weren't actually on the front page. The news didn't actually start till about the 8th or 9th page in a newspaper.
Funny thing is, still the same today. All right.
Well, it's even better these days. There's no news at all actually in the newspaper.
Okay, next one.
So now that leads us to a decision between the earth shaking in Mexico in 1922, being felt in Australia, and a bullfighting in Adelaide, a Mexican bullfight that caused the ire of farmers. And both of you have agreed that 1922, earth shaking in Mexico, it would be the false story. And indeed, that is the true story.
Oh.
And Anne was so close. The actual change was from Spain to Mexico and another state and another time and a whole lot of other changes as well. But yeah, bullfighting is actually generally Spanish, Steve, and not Mexican. I thought I was going to split you there with Ann coming up winner on that one. But it's looks like Steve trumped it.
Wow. Oh, wow. I don't know. This may not even make the program yet. And I'm sorry if I had any part to play in leading you astray.
Yeah,
there, but,
look, I'm never going on your side of things again. I think I'm sure that it was you that distracted me and provided this this final take. Wow, so a seismograph can detect movement on the other side of the world even in 1922. That's very cool. That is extremely cool.
And I was actually shocked to find that article sitting as about #1 story when I did my Trove search of Mexico and Adelaide. That came on the very first page, very near the top. But the bizarre thing was, we've just had this large or huge earthquake in New Zealand, and I just finished reading a story, the fact that the Large Hadron Collider in France actually detected the earthquake as well, because the shaking of the Earth X hours later actually caused the beam alignment to move out over in France at the time. And then lo and behold, within a day I was reading a story from 1922, and it said, yep, our seismograph back in the 1920s could detect an earthquake all the way over the other side of the planet in Mexico.
Wow. Well, now we know.
Well,
seismographs are very sensitive.
I'm actually feeling quite overwhelmed by the advancement of human science. In fact, the Earth moved for me. Ann Deslandes, thank you for getting up so excruciatingly early to have a bit of a chat with us. Really, if we did not have a whole program still to come from the South Australian Music Awards, I would have loved chatting with you all morning. I hope that you get published more and more, get more sought after, because I like the way that you bring your take to things, and you've certainly given me some things to ponder over the next week. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. A pleasure to be on the show. Have a great rest of the show and a lovely week.
And I think we should aim to follow up with another interview in about exactly a year's time. And we'll just do the first year under Trump. Did it actually go according to plan? So the current predictions, if anything you said is vaguely true, which I highly doubt, is within a year we should expect a couple of million Mexicans to return back to the country where Ann is in. We expect a nice large wall, and Mexicans deciding what color they'd like to paint their side of it within the next year. And also your trade agreement should have been torn up and thrown in the air sometime basically in the first 100 days after January the 20th. So I think we should invite Ann back for a 1-year follow-up in November 2017, just to see how the world actually turned out.
Yeah, lock it in. Lock it in.
Yep. Lovely.
It would be a pleasure.
So our podcast,
right.
that's on the anniversary of Trump winning the vote. We'll pen that one in right now. We'll get Ann back, and if there is still a world to come back to in 2017 in November, we'll see from Ann's point of view how the world actually turned out for the Mexicans.
All right, and so the three of us will be back to make podcasting great again. Thanks, Ann.
Thanks so much. Goodbye.
All right. Fantastic. I was so worried that we had got the time zones mixed up, and I had. So, Nigel, I think what we can do now is say goodnight to anyone who happens to be watching. We're going to stop this and do the last bit face-to-face.
Okay. Ann's gone already. Okay. Yep.
Oh, she wasn't hanging around. She's
breakfast time.
Yeah, probably back to bed if she can. All right. See everyone. Thanks for watching. This show comes out Wednesday night, episode 169 of the Adelaide Show. Thanks for stopping by. Bye, Nigel.
Bye.
You can come out of the passageway now.